These 3 books have been some of the most influential in my journey as a freelance creative, and I wanted to share 9 of the most impactful insights that I've learned from them. If you're new here, I'm Adam. I've been a freelance creative for the last 10 years, starting out as an inspiring filmmaker from a small northern town in the UK, getting my foot in the door as a trainee in the film industry before eventually deciding to focus on helping YouTube channels grow with my video editing and YouTube strategy skills. These 2 books are part of the author Austin Kleon's trilogy around creativity in the digital age, with each book tackling different struggles that we creatives face along our journeys. It was very difficult to pick just 9 of my favorite lessons from all 3 of these because there's just so many nuggets of wisdom scattered throughout them. But let's start with Austin's first installment, Steal Like an Artist. Nothing is original. What a good artist understands is that nothing comes from nowhere. All creative work builds on what came before. Nothing is completely original. Many creatives are inspired to do something completely original that has never been done before within your specific discipline. And that'll make your work stand out above all the rest, and everybody will be like, oh my God, you're so amazing. You're the next Tarantino, or you're the next Mark Manson, or you're the next, insert many other names of other creatives that you could be the next version of them. But this is such a crazy standard that you're setting for yourself for work to be good enough, that if it feels not original enough, then it's not good enough, and therefore not going to release it or even bother doing it. It's such an unrealistic expectation because all the stuff that you love and you've been influenced by has been influenced by many other things, and it only seems original to you because you don't know where those references come from. As soon as you can accept that originality is a false ideal, then you can feel way less scared to take ideas from others and multiple forms of inspiration from different places, filter that through your own voice and life experience, and then it will come out as something that starts to feel unique and your own thing. Maybe with time, you'll take influences from other people, and then you will be your own unique creative. If we're free from the burden of trying to be completely original, we can stop trying to make something out of nothing, and we can embrace influence instead of running away from it. Start copying. Nobody is born with a style or a voice. We don't come out of the womb knowing who we are. In the beginning, we learn by pretending to be our heroes. We learn by copying. Maybe it's because we're all trying to stand out and be authentic, our own authentic versions of ourselves in this world where you want to be different. But the idea of copying can feel pretty shameful for us creatives. I mean, at school, I'd always get told off if ever I was glancing over at my friend's desk to have a little peek on his answers. And of course, copying from somebody else instantly feels uncomfortable because it's not your voice, it's a mimic of somebody else's. We try to fix this uncomfortable feeling by instead trying to find originality somewhere in our work, like really working on our craft for so long and putting in all the hours to make this particular thing as original as it can be. But as we now know, it's an impossible metric for creation. Truth is, every single good creative that you admire copies, and many are pretty shameless about doing it. My personal favorite is Quentin Tarantino, who is the ultimate copier. Oh my God, like this guy is shameless with what he takes his stuff from. I highly recommend this other YouTube video about how creatives copy from one another, and frankly, how everybody does it. He talks a lot about Tarantino and how he does it in particular. And you know, it can sometimes feel pretty good being compared to that big creative in your field. But let's be honest, what you really want to hear is yourself being the comparison, your name being the comparison that other people are compared to, or being told that your style is just so unique and different to everybody else's. But we'll never get to this point until we first accept to take influences from multiple sources and to try them on for ourselves. The more influences you take on, the more original and unique your work is going to appear to be compared to everybody else's. If you just mimic the surface of somebody's work without understanding where they are coming from, your work will never be anything more than a knockoff. You should be intrigued to research the reasons why somebody's work is the way it is, and who they copy to. That way you can understand their journey from the early influences that affected their work, and maybe in this whole journey you'll be drawn to things that they missed, or maybe they didn't even care to deeply investigate. Meaning that you'll be influenced in a way that they never were. And by the time people start to notice your work, everybody will think you're the newest cool thing, when in reality, you know that you couldn't have gotten to this place alone without the many creatives who paved the path for you by way of their influences. Don't throw anything away of yourself. If you have 2 or 3 real passions or even hobbies that you've always loved to do and help you in some way, it doesn't have to be like, you know, they literally advance your career, just stuff that makes you feel alive and passes the time, then you shouldn't feel like you have to pick or choose between them, or feel like, you know, you have to put those things away because you're now focusing on your main discipline, and this is the thing that all your time should be dedicated towards. When I was 21 and I just got into film school, I decided to quit video games entirely. Video games was something that I'd been doing since I was 4 or 5 years old. I think some of my earliest memories was like playing Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on the Sega Mega Drive. And it wasn't until that pesky virus hit when I decided to give video games another go. And when I actually did, and I bought my Nintendo Switch console, it felt like a part of me was being nurtured in a way that it quite hadn't been for more than a decade. Like, video games have been such a heavy influence on my life. My initial inspiration and introduction towards storytelling was video games. Being transported into a world that isn't that of your own, that first feeling and sensation was video games. And ultimately that feeling is something that any art form can give you. So to completely reject this very fundamental part of my childhood slash, you know, what made me as a person and influenced a lot of my initial interests artistically and creatively, kind of a dumb thing, because I thought it would make me way more productive. And it turns out there was a way that I could integrate video games into my life and still be productive and do all the other stuff that I want to grow in life. And the crazy thing is that these passions and interests will actually all help each other in the long run. Like, it might not be obvious right now, but you're gonna find influences, or you're gonna be pushed to certain directions from the skills that you pick up or the things that you consume with your other passions that will actually blend into the main creative discipline that you do and will influence it in an actual really positive way. And sure, you might see a creative who is, you know, all in on that one creative passion, and in the short term, they seem to be ahead of where you are now, but in the long term, they're not gonna be able to sustain that if they've been putting aside a lot of other hobbies and interests and things that they actually like helped nurture them and also like help them with their stress. They're just going to burn out at one point, versus you may be slower at getting to where you want to be versus them, but you're going to actually be able to sustain the pace that you're working on. I had this whole thing of interests intersecting with my main kind of creative discipline happen not so long ago. Like, I had an interest in music production for a long time, decided to actually put the effort into learning Ableton, and it very quickly made me way better with sound design on my YouTube edits for clients and for this channel. I was just way better at mixing stuff, way better to know, like, does this sound good, and like, are people getting a better viewing experience with the audio? So that's just a really simple example, and I imagine with more time getting better at music production, I'll only start to see the returns of what that skill is doing into my main creative discipline. Don't worry about a grand scheme or unified vision for your work. Don't worry about unity. What unifies your work is the fact that you made it. One day you'll look back and it will all make sense. And you know what else makes sense right now? Me doing some work on some other client stuff I need to do and filming the rest of this video tomorrow. Now let's move on to the second book, Show Your Work. Take people behind the scenes. Traditionally, the artist has been trained to regard her creative process as something that should be kept to herself. This all made sense in the digital age, but today, she can decide exactly how much or how little for her work and herself she will share. By sharing her day-to-day process, the thing she really cares about, she can form a unique bond with her audience. It's weird, artists seem to be quite scared to show the more messy scraps of the work in progress that they're doing, because they feel like it's not good enough, or, you know, just sharing this out into the world, like, who would actually think it's interesting? Or it could even be that they're scared to like give away their secrets or give away insights that they're figuring out to potentially their competitors. I have this sometimes as well as a video editor, where like I found a cool new website to try out to find clients, and I'm like, should I share it with more people? Should I tell, if I tell too many other video editors about this website, then the whole website's going to be flooded and I'm not going to be able to find work. Obviously that's dumb, because it only suggests some insecurity in myself to like not feel confident enough that I can get jobs or I'm good enough as a video editor. Putting aside fellow artists in this example, just your actual consumers or your potential clients or people who would actually want you for your creative skills also love being taken behind the scenes, especially because it humanizes you, like more so than the art itself, like more so than the end product, them consuming it or looking at it. That doesn't really humanize you. I mean, it depends on the project technically, but generally like just you sharing the scraps of what you're doing is something that will make you feel more like a human versus like you're just this faceless entity that makes a music video or that makes a piece of art or that makes a song. Like, yeah, that's all good. But as soon as a consumer sees that, they want to know, like, who is the person behind this? One of the beautiful things that I've realized when you take people behind the scenes is that you're effectively creating a free resource for yourself that you can look back on how you made stuff and like your historical archive of steps that you've taken in your creative journey to build up the skills that you now have. One of the things that I'm really annoyed about in myself, another regret, I realized I have two, at least during the space of making this video, two regrets that I have. I used to be such a stickler for not taking BTS photos on set whenever I was working on projects, because I wanted to set an example of like how focused I was being and how in the moment and in the zone I was with my work. Which is ridiculous because I missed out on so many cool images and video from all the cool productions and music videos and commercials that I worked on, which is ridiculous because me taking a few like videos or snaps during the work wouldn't have made me less focused on the task at hand. Even if you're at home, you're like, oh, I don't want, like, you could do a quick screen recording of what you're doing. You know, you could just pull out your phone to do a quick video of what you're doing, but you're like, no, I need to not distract myself, be so focused in the zone, and yeah, I need to really be full on with my work. And this is a good mindset, like having this level of discipline, good. I would argue that that's just too far. Like, do a little bit of documentation, because the pros of you having those documentation images vastly outweighs any of the minute distraction that you're going to end up getting from, you know, just quickly taking a photo or a video. Because ultimately the intention behind the art is often equally, or sometimes actually quite often from some of the stuff I've consumed, it's more interesting than the end product itself. So by sharing your scraps, your behind the scenes, you're still going to be providing value to other people, even if that project ends up being a complete failure. By letting go of our egos and sharing our process, we allow for the possibility of people having an ongoing connection with us and our work. Don't be a hoarder. We all carry around the weird and wonderful things we've come across while doing our work and living our lives. These mental scrapbooks form out tastes, and our tastes influence our work. If you're not used to posting online, it can be pretty hard to think that, you know, only the big projects and anything to do with your creative discipline is worth posting online versus your opinion about maybe that new book that you've just finished reading or that new video game that you've 100%ed, because who gives a shit about that? Like, who cares what I have to say? I'm not different or special from anyone else. So like, why would I share about what's going on in my life at all? Maybe. But I found that if you share more than just, you know, the big stuff that's going on in your life, and instead you be way more open to share little stuff as well, you'll actually connect with way more people than you could have possibly imagined. You might be concerned about, you know, bragging or showing off, but if you even have a little bit of concern for this, you're honestly in no danger of being that person who is the bragger, because of the fact that you've had this concern pretty strongly to begin with. It means that you're a long way from being too braggy. I found that as creatives and artists, if you're solely trying to rely on how good your creativity is and just that, then you're playing this whole creative freelancer game on hard mode. It's better to share more about who you are as a person, you know, what your opinions are on things. Obviously you can control that to some degree. You don't have to like express every opinion you have. What are you coming across in life that is affecting your own personal experience of living life as a creative? I've made some YouTube videos talking candidly about topics like how anxious I am, because I feel like I'm a lot further away than where I wish I would have been at this particular stage in my life. And I was very concerned, I'll be honest, initially about putting out those kind of videos, but I got so many amazing personal DMs from people that I either didn't know and from people who I hadn't spoken to in years, and for whatever reason they decided to click on this video and it really resonated with them. And that just made me realize how all it took was that little bit of courage, that little bit of moving through this concern of like, who am I to talk about this, that actually allowed me to connect with people on a deeper level. So many people are probably sharing a similar experience to you in life, and it's so nice to be able to work through your emotional anxiety to then be able to share what's going on with you in the world via posting it online, so you can connect and ultimately help other people who you wouldn't have otherwise been able to if you let these mental barriers get in the way of facing your fears to put yourself out there into the world. Your influences are all worth sharing because they clue people into who you are and even what you do, sometimes even more than your own work. Don't just connect to people through your art, connect with them as an artist. Even the Renaissance had to be funded. Everybody says that they want artists to make money, and then when they do, everybody hates them for it. I don't know where this opinion came from about artists who are being paid to make art for other people, and that suddenly makes them become a sellout. Maybe it's another YouTube video that I need to investigate as to where this whole like trope came from. We all need money to live, and if making money via our art form is possible, that is a pretty amazing situation to be in. You know, it could be the worry for artists feeling like exploiting or using our skills for money, and therefore you're worried that you'll settle for the comfort of having the benefits of a stable career path with the benefits of actually doing something that you enjoy for a living. I get that. This is a real danger. I know of creatives who were really pushing towards the dreams of the certain kind of creative work that they wanted to do, and then eventually, you know, they just didn't get lucky at some point, or fell into a position where they just got comfortable with a certain situation where they could get regular income, and then they kind of decided to settle on just doing that as their main thing rather than pushing towards like a dream that they might have had. But what it would take to actually get there was such an unstable, rocky road that they weren't prepared to go down that journey. I get it. I've had periods where I worked on a longer projects that were really well paid, but deep inside, I just wish that I could be making something that really got my creative juices flowing and was paying me nothing, or even I was paying to work on those projects. But the reality is, the better our finances are, the more it makes making art generally easier. And yes, it'll be less romantic, and the struggle of pushing through to make something for yourself, you know, like end up like being a famous creative or whatever it may be. Yeah, that might be more of a memorable thing. But who's to say that a more comfortable journey to get you where you are or where you want to be as a creative is any less valuable or fun? You know, if I was a millionaire now, you have no idea all the cool creative projects that I'd be releasing. Of course, there's still plenty of great things that can be made without anything close to 1 million or a lot of money at all, especially with all the free and affordable tools we now have. But if you take a period of your career to say yes to that high-paying project, or even drop the whole freelancing thing altogether to work for a company while you do, you know, more creative projects on the side where you're fully in control or more in control, then there's nothing to be ashamed about going down this path. I actually have regrets about not trying to work for a company in my early freelance career because I wanted to have 100% free time by living at home, and I thought that this would allow me to have the best chance of making it as a creative. But I actually didn't push myself as much as I probably could have because I had no like time crunch, and every single day I could pretty much do whatever I wanted to do. And that's just Parkinson's law in action that I experienced, where work expands to fill the time allotted for its completion. Therefore, even if I was actually technically more busy working for a company and had less free time, I probably would have ended up doing more stuff if I'm honest. Especially now because I'm much more busy with other client stuff, I get way more done because I have that knowledge of I don't have a lot of free time, so I need to make the most of it. So just remember, you're no less of a creative if your path doesn't look as glamorous as maybe the other creatives that you're looking up to. We all have to get over our starving artist romanticism and the idea that touching money inherently corrupts creativity. Now let's check out the third book in the series, Keep Going. Take one day at a time. The creative life is not linear. It's not a straight line from point A to point B. It's more like a loop or a spiral in which you keep coming back to a new starting point after every project. We need to remind ourselves that our creative work compounds. You might not notice that you've moved the needle forward, or you are moving the needle forward in any meaningful capacity by the end of a day's work, or even by the end of a week, or maybe even a year, to be honest. But if you've been putting in the creative work on your skills, you can look back in a few years' time and your mind will be completely blown if you've, been doing the work for how far you've actually already come. So just try and do one good thing for yourself each day. There's some days where my energy is really low, the weather is bad, many things that could be going on to just really mean that I wake up in not a super pumped up creative mood. But you can just do one good thing for yourself. And it doesn't even have to be a creative thing. It can be a health thing, go to the gym, make a little bit of progress on whatever you might be working on. As long as it's just one good thing, you will be making that small progress, and you'll be building up the habit of actually, doing something rather than being like, I give up, I can't, I'm too tired, whatever. I'm just not going to do anything all day. Don't beat yourself up if things get in the way of the progress you were planning to make. Just get some sleep and reset for the next day. And if you can't even muster doing one good thing, it's fine to waste a day, maybe, or two, just try not to make that habit into anything long-term. Now you can skip a gym session, but don't skip 2 gym sessions back to back, because then it starts to actually turn into a negative habit. Creative journey is not one in which you're crowned the triumphant hero and live happily ever after. The real creative journey is one in which you wake up every day with more work to do. Ignore the numbers. Instagram likes don't tell you whether an image you made struck with someone for a month. A stream count doesn't equal an actual human being showing up to your live show and dancing. This is something I need to work on a lot, being so driven by what's going on with metrics, especially as somebody who posts online. I look at a lot of my YouTube analytics way more than I care to admit, but metrics do matter, especially for your brand as a creative. They do actually matter. There's some metric that you can actually track to see if you're growing and like for you to get opportunities online because you're putting yourself out there online and sharing what you do, but they don't matter in terms of fulfillment. Many times I've made YouTube videos that do really well, but they weren't even close to the favorite videos that I made in terms of the experience of scripting it and shooting it and editing it. And I had this first-hand experience because I was quite fortunate or unfortunate, depending on the story I'm about to tell you, where I had an early YouTube video on this channel go viral, and it felt really good for a while. Seeing the sub count go up, I was like, oh my god, YouTube, I'm making it work. But after a while, it started to actually feel horrible, or just not. There was something about it that I didn't like, because as I was releasing more new videos, all of these new subs that I got only cared about that one video on the topic that I was talking about in it, and they didn't give a shit about the more candid, honest content that I was releasing to camera. And that really taught me the lesson of it's better to have a smaller audience that care about you and would be interested to hear your opinions and thoughts on, you know, stuff other than your creative discipline or just broader areas of discussion within this, than a bigger audience who only care about that one specific thing that you share with them and that you're known for. Because the people who are actually going to watch the more honest, candid stuff, those are the ones who are actually going to be there for you and support you in times of need, because they're actually your true fans who really got something and get something from you as a person. If you just chase views, you're going to burn out because you're just making stuff too much for other people and nothing for yourself. And what's the whole point in doing YouTube if you can't sometimes make stuff for yourself? And I get it, like sometimes we want to post online because we want to do it for other people, because we're sharing what we're doing, and then you'll get hopefully opportunities from that. But you still have to find a balance, or at least periods where you can start to make stuff that really feels honest and that is for you more so than anything. When you ignore quantitative measurements for a bit, you can get back to qualitative measurements. Is it good? Really good? Do you like it? You can focus more on what the work does that can't be measured, what it does to your soul. You have everything you need. It's easy to fall into the trap and assume that only if you could trade your ordinary life for a new one that you're, you know, creative that you're really looking up to has, all of your problems would be solved. I always wanted to find a creative partner in crime, personally, to share in my growth on my whole creative career. And despite the small times in life when I did have a close collaborator for a period of time, like during my university film school times, I never kept one for the long run. And it came to make me realize that although it does make it more fun to share in the journey with somebody, you don't actually need that to get started or even make good progress towards your creative freelance goals. I grew up in a small northern town, and there was nothing of interest for me in terms of my filmmaking journey there, or at least I thought so. It was limiting, but actually there was a lot of inspiration everywhere. I ended up buying a Fujifilm camera, one of the really popular ones at the time. I'd saved up for it. A lot of my early Instagram posts were just really cool cinematic moments that I was able to experience and see in my hometown, all in my hometown. And that really helped to hone and improve my photographic skills early on. And that only helped me as a filmmaker later on in my life, and even so today. I could have had this mindset of like, oh, there's nothing interesting in my hometown. I've been there all my life. I don't see anything interesting. But just having a camera and trying to turn on this like mindset of finding like cinematic, interesting stuff that would be interesting to other people, not me, trying to see the world for what it is, really opened my eyes to the fact that you can get creative things out of almost any area of life that you're in. Same with my early YouTube videos. I was just documenting how I was feeling at the time. They weren't the amazing music videos that I always dreamed of being able to make as like my job, my proper filmmaker job, but they allowed me to grow a lot of my skills, and in terms of like taking ideas, speaking them out of my mouth and telling it to an audience. And look where I am right now. I can do that pretty easily. It's not a difficulty for me. So take a look at what's going on in your life right now and how can you make art from it? What can you do to like remix or transform where you're at in life, and how can you make the most of the situation that you're currently in. It doesn't have to be directly connected to your particular creative discipline. It can just be maybe another skill that you want to grow more in, because no doubt it's going to intersect with your main creative interests at some point, even if you don't even realize that it will right now. As I said before, gear-wise, it's the best time to be alive now. There's so much free content and resources for all the stuff that you could possibly want to make. So you got to remember, it's the best time to be alive as a creative in history. There's a lot to moan about, I know. There's a lot of competition out there. There's a lot to moan about. Only a few decades ago, you wouldn't have any chance to succeed unless you already knew somebody in the industry for your creative discipline. There's always people who are going to have a head start to you in life, but as long as you keep going, enjoy what you do, get 1% better every little day, or even like 0.0, a little bit better, that's what I'm trying to say. We all have as much chance as anybody else. I'm also still trying to figure things out in my creative journey, much like everybody else. Still a lot to figure out and explore and things to overcome, mental hurdles. But I just hope that by sharing my insights along the way, it'll make it a little bit easier for other fellow creatives to succeed within their journeys. Remember, you do not need to have an extraordinary life to make extraordinary work. Everything you need to make extraordinary art can be found in your everyday life. Now, after watching this, if you need me to convince you even more as to why every creative needs to have a YouTube channel, you should check out this other video over here and hit that subscribe button, because if you don't, Tommy was always going to read you the full script to his hit movie, The Room, every evening for you as a lovely bedtime story. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.